Hey guys, and welcome back to Auto Social UK. The Suzuki Swift Hybrid Sport, it's actually got a bit of a niche because it's both a performance car, well, a warm hatch at least, and a hybrid. That means it mixes punchy performance with also that fuel economy. But is it still one of the best little warm hatches that you can buy? Well, hopefully I'm going to find that out today. I'm in sunny Ireland, and in today's video I'm going to be spending some time with the Suzuki Swift Sport, and I'm going to tell you all the reasons why I think this is still such a great car. So if that sounds good, then please do keep watching, and if you like new car reviews and car content, then you know what to do. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. What lays at the heart of the Swift is a turbocharged 1.4 litre petrol engine that's supported by mild hybrid assistance for better efficiency and performance. Although it only has 127 brake horsepower, the car's lightweight design allows it to accelerate from 0 to 62 in 9.1 seconds, which sounds, well, downright pants. But it's not all as it seems, and countless times many have recorded 0 to 62 times of 7 seconds or less, which is 1.6 seconds faster than my Up GTI. In terms of styling, it hasn't actually changed, well, at all since 2018, but that's not a bad thing, because lots of cars from 2018 are starting to look a bit stale and fusty, but the Swift Sport still looks great, right? Especially in these really punchy colours. You don't even see that anymore, but it has the perfect recipe when it comes to warm and hot hatches. That's some pretty fancy alloy wheels, lashings of imitation carbon, and my favourite thing, which is a twin exhaust. It keeps it looking sporty and actually still stands out compared to all the other cars that are currently on the road. In fact, when we've been driving these through Ireland, they've been getting tons of looks, especially if you go for one in yellow. But personally, I'd probably stick to the blue, or perhaps the grey looks great as well. What I do miss though is the previous generation car, which did have those really chunky front and rear bumpers. It made it look really aggressive, but it could have been kind of tipping on the fence of looking, well, a little bit chavvy, but we all know that I quite like a chavvy car. Perhaps now though, in the new generation, this just looks a bit more subtle. It's suited to more people, it has a wider audience. And I think that's the best thing about this car. It does appeal to such a wide audience. Of course, another factor when people are looking for a car, regardless of whether it's a warm hatch or whether you're looking for a practical family car, is just how reliable they are. And I think a lot of people forget just how many awards that Suzuki have swept up for not only their reliability, but also their customer service. They're almost on top for perhaps the past 5 years for both of those factors. So if you're looking for something which isn't going to cause you trouble, then this is probably pretty much a safe bet. Actually, the first time that I've had a Swift Sport Hybrid on the channel. I drove it around 3 years ago when the channel was very new, and also the Swift Hybrid was very new. Previously, this was just a petrol car, known for its loud exhaust and its punchy engine. But when they added the hybrid, it was a little bit controversial. Putting a hybrid in a warm hatch is never going to go down particularly well, especially when the power has been reduced to 130 and the 0 to 62 time is sub 9 seconds. That's a little bit of a bitter pill to swallow for a lot of people. However, they might have reduced the power of this car, but what I think they've done is they've given it a unique selling point. Because previously, the Swift Sport Hybrid, though it was a lot of fun, it was never the quickest in its class, overshadowed by the likes of the Polo GTI and other cars like the Fiesta ST. What they've done by making it hybrid is made it pretty unique. Let's face it, if you want a car which is nippy, fun to drive, sporty to look at, great fuel economy and a manual gearbox, well, between this and the Up GTI, that's pretty much it.
A car like this is a bit of a dying breed, and I think personally by putting a hybrid engine in it, it just makes it more appealing than ever before. You can get up to 50 miles per gallon out of one of these, and it's far more practical than my Up. You've got more space for adults, you've also got more tech as well. It gets a reversing camera, as well as lots of other gadgets that you don't get in my Volkswagen Up GTI. The only thing it does miss out on is it doesn't quite have that raucous exhaust that it used to have. It doesn't have quite as much attitude. It blends into the background a little bit more, but I think that's quite suited to the Suzuki brand. I mean, let's face it, have you seen their commercial recently about the knitted jumpers on Suzukis? It's clear where they're going with their audience, and there's a lot of cars for a slightly older generation. But I think if you're looking for something which is fun to drive, but also economical, then you can't go far wrong with this.
When it comes to practicality, well, it possibly depends on what you're comparing the Swift to. Because if you're comparing it to a Polo, or if you're comparing it to a Fiesta ST, then practicality isn't quite as good. But compare it to something like my Up GTI, then practicality is great. Inside the boot, you have got enough storage, as displayed, for a few small suitcases or a couple of large suitcases. Perhaps the only thing that it misses out on is you don't get any adjustable boot floor. So that load area is quite low to drop items into. And also, if you're planning on putting dogs or things in the boot, then that's probably going to be a small issue. But I can imagine that if this is on your list of cars, putting a dog in the boot is probably not a factor. If you've recently watched my video of the Toyota CHR in its new generation, one of the things that I mentioned was about door handles. And other than people complaining to me that apparently because I'm not part of Gen Z, I don't understand how to open a door, but the Swift falls short of the same reason that the Toyota CHR used to, and that's the fact that you've got the door handles up here, which is a little bit strange. It means that if you do have small children, they're not going to be able to access the doors, and it sometimes confuses people when they're getting in and out. But really, that's a very small issue. A similar sense with the boot. When it comes to practicality on the interior, well, it probably depends on what you're comparing it to. I would describe it as no frills. Space is okay. I've got an alright amount of legroom, okay amount of headroom, and actually space when you're sitting in the middle bench is not too bad either, because the bench is completely flat, so you can sit easily in the middle with no problems. But then there are some small negatives, and that's just things that are lacking. You don't have a centre armrest with any cup holders. You do have a centre cup holder down here, but that does have to be shared with the front, and also there isn't any charging in the rear. And just in terms of quality, it's not all the best. You've got scratchy door cards, and the seats are perhaps a little bit lower quality. But let's face it, when it comes to affordability, well, you get what you pay for. Speaking of which, the Sport starts from $23,670, and other than the Skittle-like colours, it comes in one single specification with all the bells and whistles. It isn't quite the bargain it used to be, but considering you can no longer buy an Up GTI or a Fiesta ST, rivals for the Swift are dwindling, and it will set you back £5,000 less than a Polo GTI or a Hyundai i20N. It's a similar story with the front of the car as well. It all looks very nice, but when you start looking a bit closer, the quality isn't perfect. But once again, that all comes down to a price tag. Because let's face it, if you want a higher quality car, then you're going to pay a little bit more. The seats are pretty good, they're well bolstered. I do wonder how they'd wear over time, and there isn't any leather option. So if you wanted a leather option car, then you are going to have to pay quite a lot more money. You do have this textured plastic on the dashboard which brightens the cabin up, but it is plastic, so it doesn't always feel the best. The steering wheel is lovely though, leather wrapped, you've got the red stitching around the centre. There is again a little bit of plastic underneath, but it all feels pretty good, and I love the amount of buttons on the steering wheel. It makes it so easy to use the Swift. You've got your adaptive cruise control, you've got all your settings for your Bluetooth, and that's the thing about this car. When it comes to spec, it's excellent. You get adaptive cruise control as standard. You also get a rear view camera, satellite navigation, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. When it comes to your everyday warm hatch, you pretty much have everything you could need. And then you have the nice elements that are now missing in a lot of modern cars. You've got a handbrake, you've got an actual handbrake and a manual gearbox. These are things that we actually take for granted nowadays. When I first tested the Swift Sport, it was before I actually had my Up GTI. And what I've realised, whilst I've been spending time with the car once again in Ireland, is just how closely related those two cars are. For instance, the Up GTI, it has a pretty compact engine, but it's punchy, it's fun, and it's engaging. And it also has a manual gearbox. And that is something that also the Suzuki Swift Sport has. But I've realised that the Swift Sport is probably a bit more practical, with its 5 doors, its larger boot, and a slightly more punchy engine. Plus, it gets better fuel economy because of that hybrid engine. So did I choose wrong when I chose the Up GTI? Was I being short-sighted because of my love for Volkswagens? And should I have bought a Suzuki Swift Sport? What do you guys think? Do you think I made the right choice, or do you think one of these suits me a bit better? Let me know in the comments down below. If you have enjoyed the video, please go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. And if you want to see more, then go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Until next time guys, see you later.